You might think you know Dungeons & Dragons, but here are 12 facts you may not have known about adventures in the realm. The animated series Dungeons & Dragons debuted on September 17, 1983, with the episode The Night of No Tomorrow. The series would run for a total of 27 episodes across 3 seasons, with the final episode, The Winds of Darkness, airing on December 7, 1985. This show was the first and so far only television adaptation of the Dungeons & Dragons game, a tabletop fantasy role-playing game introduced in 1974 by TSR. A D&D game is usually run by a dungeon master, who is represented in the show by the kid's mysterious friend and mentor. The developer of the show was Mark Evanier, the co-creator of the comic series Gru the Wanderer, and the main writer of Garfield and Friends. Other writers for the show include Paul Dini, producer of Batman the Animated Series and co-creator of Harley Quinn, and Steve Gerber, co-creator of Howard the Duck. The show was about the adventures of 6 friends transported via magical roller coaster to a fantasy world where they assume the roles of various D&D player classes. Hank the Ranger, Eric the Cavalier, Sheila the Thief, Diana the Acrobat, Presto the Magician, and Bobby the Barbarian. Hank was voiced by Willie Ames, who played Buddy on Charles in Charge and the superhero Bible Man. Eric was voiced by Don Most, who played Ralph Malph on Happy Days. Wenger was played by Peter Cullen, best known as the voice of Optimus Prime. Tiamat and Uni were played by Frank Welker, the voice of Megatron, and Fred from Scooby-Doo. The Dungeon Master typically refers to the kids by their character class, rather than by name. The exception to this is Sheila, who he always calls by name, and who is only called a thief in the opening credits. Presumably this was to avoid the appearance of glamorizing thievery. Eric is one of the most memorable characters on the show, because he is such an annoying and cowardly contrarian. Apparently this was on purpose. Parents groups at the time demanded that children's programming push the moral that the group is always right and complainers are always wrong. The show was controversial at the time due to the level of violence it depicted. The Season 2 episode The Dragon's Graveyard nearly didn't air because the kids considered killing Wenger. Due to the satanic panic of the 1980s, the show had to air a warning that it had been tied to real-life violent deaths. A final episode, Requiem, which would have served as a finale or series revamp for a 4th season, was written but never aired. However, the script has been released online and was recorded as a radio play that is available to hear on the series DVD. This episode reveals several answers that were hinted at throughout the series. Namely that Wenger was in fact the Dungeon Master's son who had been turned evil, and that the Dungeon Master had the power to send the kids back home all along. The series inspired a series of 6 choose-your-own-adventure style books, each from the point of view of a different child. The 1996 comic book The Grand Tour tells the story of adult versions of the heroes still in the realm, focusing on Presto seeking an apprenticeship with the wizard Elminster. There's an Easter egg in the PC game Baldur's Gate 2, in which the player can find portraits of Hank and Bobby in the Adventurer's Mark. If you click on the portraits, the game hints that Hank and Bobby were eaten by the dragon Tiamat. That's it for this episode of You Think You Know Cartoons. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Comics Alliance for more cartoon facts, and check out comicsalliance.com for more cartoon awesomeness.